The 2018 Sprott Natural Resources Symposium continues, and we're continuing to see platinum grace headlines. Joining me now is Trevor Raymond, the Director of Research of the World Platinum Investment Council. Trevor, great to have you here.
Hi, Remy. Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's an interesting time to be here in Vancouver, Canada at the Sprott Symposium. We know that platinum as well as other precious metals continue to be in the headlines for where they're trading in terms of price. But when we step back and look at the fundamentals, what do you think is important for people out there?
I think the important thing about the platinum market is that the price has been declining and very low for the last 7 years due to an overhang that was largely in vaulted stocks. So prior to ETFs, there were a number of hedge funds that held stocks in vaulted holdings, and those were sold in 2013 and 2014. I think that overhang was misunderstood, and what we've had since then is a very negative price, and in fact, platinum is pretty much locked to the gold price at the moment. So I think the important thing is that the fundamentals tend to play out. We've had 5 consecutive deficits. The market is a lot tighter. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing some interesting drivers of demand growth with constrained supply. And people are starting to find this market quite interesting, particularly right now.
And a lot of attendees at the conference, as well as some of the exhibitors, have also reflected the sentiment as well. But I do want to focus on the World Platinum Investment Council. So could you tell me about the platinum producers that make up this organization?
Certainly. So I think the interesting thing with the platinum market is that 30 years ago, the platinum mining companies in South Africa promoted platinum jewelry. And that resulted in platinum jewelry being 3 million ounces out of an 8 million ounce market. Quite remarkable for a primary mining company to affect a commodity demand outcome. Which is probably why we exist, by making it somebody's day job to increase assets under management globally, should give those producers demand certainty. They need to be pretty brave to build a platinum mine, $2 billion, 7 years to produce. So that requires quite some courage, and demand certainty is important. So we were set up by Anglo American Platinum, Lonmin, Impala, RB Plats, Northam, and initially Aquarius, which is now Sibanye-Stillwater. So those mining companies fund us, a modest budget, and we try to increase the information for fund managers to make more informed investment decisions, as well as to develop product with partners to make it easier for investors to act. So that's what we do. Because of competition law, we certainly don't speak on their behalf or have any non-public information. And we think we're making a difference. We think investors are able to better evaluate this market since we've been around, and also to see that the fact that the fundamentals are certainly not being reflected in the price.
And I think when it comes to investors, it's always ideal to be able to buy at the bottom of a market. But I do want to ask you, if somebody's interested in platinum and they're not quite familiar about how to do this, what would be your advice?
So I think absolutely, if people, and typically the people at this symposium tend to understand the cyclicality of resources and that fundamentals do get reflected in the price, I think the ownership can be actually quite wide. So a man in the street tends to want to own a bar or a coin and keep that at home in a safe. There are exchange traded funds, which are probably the easiest way to invest. And there's probably over 14 listed around the world, in the US and in Europe. So people can just go to their broker and get hold of an ETF as they would a normal equity and own it. So it's quite quick, easy and painless. And we certainly think there's a great opportunity at the moment. We're not registered to give investment advice, but we certainly think that the people that know resources do understand that the fundamentals do win at the end of the day.
And I do want to dive into the fundamentals in terms of the economics. So in terms of the supply and demand of this rare metal, what do you expect to see?
So platinum's quite unique. It comes from a pretty tight geographic zone. Over 70% of platinum comes from Southern Africa, and the rest of it is produced as a byproduct of nickel in Russia and a bit of palladium in North America. So what you've got is that supply is constrained because of rising real costs in South Africa. The socioeconomic structure there is that wage increases tend to be well above inflation each year. So the capital investment has been low for several years. So it does appear that the supply is more likely to go down than up. And then on the demand side, you've got sort of 4 main demand categories: automotive, jewelry, industrial, and investment. And we think there's a large misunderstanding with regard to autocatalysis and the diesel crisis. So the VW diesel crisis in 2015 has played itself out. Diesel sales are falling in Europe, But we think that the amount of diesel cars are likely to be more with higher loadings, and the market isn't giving that any credibility. And the other two themes that are coming through is that platinum works very well in a gasoline engine, and concerns about palladium availability and the price of palladium and platinum being at the same level, that on a one-to-one basis we believe that platinum will go into gasoline catalysis, and that's a huge demand growth of several 100,000 ounces. So we think those two, and maybe the last one that's been quite a theme at this conference, is that the fuel cell electric vehicle is finally being recognized as a more likely replacement for the internal combustion engine than a battery vehicle. So we certainly think battery vehicles are gaining traction, but not as fast as people expected. And I think the realism that fuel cell electric vehicles will form part of the future powertrain mix has definitely sunk in over the last few months, and that's quite interesting. I mean, you see there's $1 billion in a lithium ETF. People are investing in cobalt and nickel, but it doesn't seem that there's a cent invested into platinum for fuel cells, and maybe that's a missed opportunity.
Okay, Trevor, well, some very interesting insights there, so thank you for shedding light on platinum, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Remy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.